Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got the Houston Texans just did exactly what the NFL feared. Let's check this out. Hey, bro. One of the fastest rebuilds of all time. Really. Because they went from a team that won, like, what? 3 games a couple seasons ago to now being favorite to win the Super Bowl this year, bro. So clap it up for DeMeco Ryans in the front office. Clap it up for CJ Stroud. You know, they've done a great job with putting more talent around him from his rookie year, like Mixon and Diggs.
Straight into the Houston Texans at this point, because this team, man, the more and more I look at them, the more and more
like and let alone they had a great draft too, bro. People forget that they drafted Kamari Lassiter. They drafted Kalen Bullock, who was my favorite safety coming out of this draft class, bro, who I thought was going to be, you know what I'm saying, the first safety off the board. That didn't end up happening. But, you know, I feel like Kalen Bullock was definitely the best safety in this draft class, and they got a steal, you know what I'm saying, in the later rounds with him.
They went out this offseason and made every single addition they needed to make this
shit. He could have went in the first round, to be honest.
Already really good offense, but it also goes for a defense that played really good under DeMeco Ryans last year. I think both sides of the ball have gotten better, and I think they're both going to perform better in the upcoming season. And if that happens, I think it's pretty easy to see that this team is going to be one of the best teams in the entire NFL. But before we get into why I believe that exactly, if you like Houston Texans content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Texans videos for the remainder of this offseason. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Houston Texans, this team is coming off a season where they won the division, made the playoffs, and won their first playoff game, which is honestly something no one expected coming into the year. I mean, people knew they got a good quarterback prospect in CJ Stroud, and they knew they got a good head coach.
I was not expecting CJ to be as good as he was in his rookie year.
Either of these two guys to have the impact
he really shocked
in
me,
year
bro.
one, but man, oh man, they had an impact, all right, and we saw that all throughout the season. DeMeco Ryans has already come in and built a culture in this franchise to win football games, and you saw that pretty early on in the way this team played compared to the way they played the previous year. Everyone was playing with their hair on fire, and you could tell the entire team believed they could win every time they stepped out on the field, and that alone was a big reason why they had so much success. Now, obviously, you need more than just belief to be a great team. You also got to have good players, and the Texans had that as well, and it starts, of course, with that guy, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, if you remember, got a ton of hate in the pre-draft process in 2023 before he got drafted by the Texans, mainly about how smart he was, but obviously none of that.
Like, bro, all that book shit does not matter for all he gotta know is how to read a playbook, you know what I'm saying, how to read defenses and throw the rock, my nigga. Like, bro, don't CJ, like, one thing I like about CJ, he doesn't really listen to all that bullshit, people calling him dumb and cause he wasn't good academically and shit like that. That shit does not matter, bro. This nigga's a football player. He proved everybody wrong last year. And that's what I like about CJ, bro.
Because this guy came into
he doesn't care.
And on day one, he was pretty good. He obviously got better as the season went on, but you could tell pretty early on that this guy was a stud and that the Texans picked the right guy. I mean, he looked like a veteran quarterback as a rookie.
And it's kind of ironic, bro. He, you know what I'm saying, he played at Ohio State, and his #1 target was at Michigan and Nico Collins. So that's kind of crazy, bro.
That's extremely accurate and can play in structure. You have a quarterback that I would consider elite. He's already proven himself, in my opinion, to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and I only expect him to continue to get better as he progresses throughout his career. So coming into this upcoming season, I was pretty certain the Texans were going to have a great offense once again, just because they still had CJ Stroud. But what I love about this organization is they weren't just done there. They wanted to add even more to the team to make the offense even better, and that's exactly what they did. The biggest addition, of course, is arguably the biggest addition in the entire offseason.
As long as he doesn't, you know what I'm saying, be a crybaby, then I think they'll be just fine. Because Diggs can be a locker room cancer at times.
Another almost 1,200 yard season where he also had 8 touchdowns, and that would be considered a down year. And most of these yards came like in the first half of the season. Like in the second half of the season, he didn't perform that well. Imagine how his stats would have been like if he, you know what I'm saying, played as good as he did in the first half of the season. Where he also had 8 touchdowns, and that would be considered a down year for him him, so that should tell you how good of a player he is. He's a guy that can line up out wide, and you can tell him to do basically anything.
He's still a top 10 receiver in the league. I don't care what nobody says.
Ball, even if he's not open, and that is going to be a huge help to CJ Stroud. He's obviously going to be the #1 receiver on this team, but I don't think Nico Collins is that far behind him considering what he was able to do last year, and that makes up one of the best receivers in football right now.
Actually, I feel like Nico's definitely going to continue to be that #1 guy. Have Diggs play in the slot. You know, I think he works better in the slot than on the outside. And then, you know what I'm saying, you have Nico and Tank Dell who can take the top off the defenses as well. So you know what I'm saying? I feel like that lineup will be great for them.
#1 receiver to go along with a young receiver that's only going to get better, that just had the best season of his career, is pretty unfair in my opinion, especially when you consider you also still have Tank Dell who's coming back from his injury. Tank Dell is another guy that got hated on a lot in the pre-draft process.
Bro, if this nigga doesn't come out to mini-men,
as we all know, that size
didn't matter his first game back,
he put up some crazy numbers as well.
After, you know what I'm saying, because you know he got shot and shit like that, bro. If he doesn't come out to that, bro, I'm going to riot.
He's extremely shifty, and he gets open in almost every one-on-one situation. So when you look at this receiver room as a whole, I really don't know what a defense's plan would be to stop them. There's just not much you can do, especially when you also consider that you signed back Dalton Schultz, who's the perfect safety blanket that gives you a whole nother option to throw to. It just looks like this team is absolutely loaded with weapons, and the fact that you're giving a guy like CJ Stroud, an elite quarterback, that to work with is just absolutely unreal. Not to mention, you also went out and got Joe Mixon this offseason.
Joe Money Man Mixon.
Who should allow you to have a pretty good run game. And if you pair a pretty good run game with
I can finally like Joe Mixon now because he's not a Bengal.
Good, and that's exactly what
fucking sad, bro.
I think they're going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 offense next year. And when you pair that with a DeMeco Ryans-led defense that got a lot better this offseason, that's when you start to see this team really becoming a contender. When you look at the defense, the first thing you notice pretty quickly is the defensive line, because not only did you already have Will Anderson Jr., who's coming off a great Rookie of the Year season, but you also signed another elite edge rusher to pair with him in Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter has put up great numbers every single year he's been in the league, and he did the exact same thing last year, putting up a whopping 16
I feel like bro is definitely underrated because people weren't really even talking about Danielle Hunter like in the defensive player conversation. It was mostly between Parsons, Watt, and Myles Garrett. For real, people weren't even really talking about Danielle Hunter like that.
He's one of the more underrated players in the league because he doesn't get talked about as much as he should. But this guy is going to give you consistent production year in and year out.
I wanted my Ravens to trade for him like last year, like at the midseason mark and shit like that.
Will Anderson Jr., who's only going to get better, you're probably going to be getting after the passer at a pretty consistent rate. And when you combine that with all the rotational pieces you have and with the interior of this defensive line, the defensive line as a whole looks really good, and I think it's going to allow DeMeco Ryans to be extremely
creative. And the one-on-ones that Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are going to get is going to be crazy because you can't double team both of them.
They also added to their linebacker room that needed some help, especially since they lost Blake Cashman, and they did that by going out and signing that guy, Azeez Al-Shaair, who has proved himself to be pretty good as well. This is a guy that's played under DeMeco Ryans before.
Yeah, he's underrated.
He understands his system very well.
I like
so I'm
Azeez
excited
Al-Shaair.
to see how DeMeco Ryans uses him
and also
how
got
he plays
Christian
in year
Harris,
one on the
Henry
Texans, because I think he's
To'o.
going to be the lead linebacker of this group. Now, to go along with him, you're still going to have Christian Harris, who I like a decent
He turned
amount.
up down the stretch of the season.
To'o going into his second season, who will hopefully get better with the more snaps he plays, which would make up a pretty good linebacker room overall. I think they're going to be flying downhill, stopping the run, and also doing pretty good in coverage. And if that happens, this front seven really does look like a front seven that could be one of the better ones in the NFL. I know they're not perfect, but they're plenty good enough to be a good defense, especially when you add to that you have a great secondary behind them. Of course, you have Derek Stingley Jr., who is coming off an outstanding season.
Bro, I'm happy he's finally been able to stay healthy, bro.
Him to be 2 years ago, and then to go along with him, you went out and you signed Jeff Okudah, who still has a lot of
CJ
potential
Henderson
in my
as well.
opinion, and I'm hoping,
hopefully, you know what I'm saying, they can
you went out and signed
change their draft bus, you know what I'm saying, campaign right now, because both of them have been horrible, you know what I'm saying? And Jeff Okudah hasn't even really been healthy enough to play the whole season, and CJ Henderson is just dog shit, you know what I'm saying? But maybe, you know what I'm saying, a new change of scenery of them actually playing for a playoff contender, maybe that'll, you know what I'm saying, hype them up a little bit, turn them up, make them play harder and shit like that, knowing that Super Bowl, you know what I'm saying, is right in your rear view mirror, bro. You know what I'm saying? So
and a guy in Miles Bryant to help out this secondary as well. And the addition that I like the most is, of course, the second-round draft pick they had by going out and taking Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia, because I think he is the exact type of player that DeMeco Ryans wants on his defense, and I also think he's going to be really good right off the bat. When I look at Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. on paper as a corner duo, they really do look like they have a chance to be one of the better duos in the league if everything turns out like I think it's going to. So I think it's pretty clear to see that the corner room is going to be really, really good. And then to go along with that, you of course still have that guy Jimmy Ward, who is getting a little bit older.
Please mention
He's
Kalen
still
Bullock.
going to play at a really high level for you. And you have the guy Jalen Petrie, who also broke out last year and proved himself to be worth that second-round pick 2 years ago in the same draft that you took Derek Stingley. So when you look at this secondary combined, I think they have a chance to be an elite secondary. And when you combine that with the fact that the front seven is going to be good against
people are
the run,
sleeping
and
on
they're
him.
going to be able to get after the passer, this defense should be a top 10 unit in the league next year to go along with an offense that I also think is going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 unit in the NFL. And that's why I said earlier on in the video that this team is going to be a true contender.
Hey, man. What do you guys think? I think the Texans, hey, they're going to be scary for sure, bro. We played them on Christmas this year. That should be a fun one. But I want to know what you guys think. Y'all let me know down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoy. If you did, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on post notifications. You're notified whenever I drop another banger video. Wonder about 300 subs. So I'm going to get for more banger NFL content like this. And without further ado, I'm out. Gang!